Get ready to witness the most jaw-dropping courtroom meltdown in television history. When Karen Thompson, a self-entitled suburban mom who thought her weekend legal research made her smarter than America's toughest judge, walked into Judge Judy's courtroom with a smirk and absolute confidence in her superiority, she had no idea she was about to face the most humiliating 36 seconds of her entire life. What started as arrogant mockery ended with her sobbing uncontrollably on national television, begging for mercy from the same judge whose verdict she had just ridiculed to her face like a fool. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane and why it became the most viral courtroom moment in internet history. Karen didn't just lose her case. She didn't just get embarrassed. What Judge Judy did to her in those brutal 36 seconds was so devastatingly precise, so legally ruthless, that it destroyed Karen's entire world in front of millions of viewers. We're talking about a woman who walked in thinking she was about to school a television judge, only to discover that Judge Judy had been setting the perfect trap from the very first question. Every eye roll, every interruption, every disrespectful comment Karen made was being cataloged by a legal mind that had crushed over 20,000 cases before breakfast. Here's the secret that nobody knew until this moment. Judge Judy had already spotted 12 different lies in Karen's paperwork before the case even started. 12. She knew exactly what kind of entitled fraud she was dealing with, and she was ready to make an example out of her that would echo through courtroom history forever. Karen thought she was facing just another authority figure she could bulldoze with her loud voice and aggressive attitude. Instead, she was about to encounter a judicial hurricane with 25 years of experience demolishing people exactly like her. Picture this. Karen Thompson, the kind of woman who demands to speak to the manager at every establishment because she believes the world owes her special treatment, strutting into Judge Judy's courtroom like she owned the entire building. Her confidence was off the charts. She'd spent 2 weeks preparing what she thought was an airtight case, armed with legal articles she'd printed from random websites and a superiority complex that could fill an entire stadium. She looked at Judge Judy like she was just another minimum wage employee who needed to be put in her place. She had absolutely no idea she was about to meet a woman who had been systematically destroying entitled people since before Karen was even born. The most insane part is that Karen actually thought she was going to win. She told her friends, posted on social media, and even practiced her victory speech in front of her bathroom mirror. She walked into that courtroom with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for her behavior in her entire privileged life. She was about to learn that Judge Judy's courtroom isn't like the customer service desks where Karen usually got her way by throwing tantrums. This was a place where respect mattered, where evidence ruled, and where entitled attitudes went to die the most spectacular deaths imaginable. Smash that like button right now because what you're about to see will restore your faith in justice and make you believe that karma is not only real, but it has absolutely perfect timing. Hit subscribe because in the next 15 minutes, you'll witness the complete and total destruction of the most arrogant Karen ever caught on camera. This isn't just a courtroom case. This is a masterclass in why you should never, ever disrespect Judge Judy. The 36 seconds that changed everything are coming up, and trust me, you won't believe what this entitled woman thought she could get away with. Karen Thompson was the perfect storm of entitlement and delusion, wrapped up in a designer outfit that screamed, "I demand special treatment wherever I go." This was the kind of woman who returned food at restaurants after eating half of it, who screamed at teenage cashiers over expired coupons, and who genuinely believed that speaking louder made her more right. She lived in a bubble of privilege so thick that she had never once in her 42 years of existence faced a situation where her tantrum tactics didn't eventually get her exactly what she wanted. Her entire identity was built on being the customer who was always right, the complainer who always got her way, and the entitled suburbanite who could bully anyone into submission with her aggressive persistence and fake outrage. For 2 solid weeks leading up to this case, Karen had transformed her kitchen table into what she called her legal war room. She had printed out dozens of articles from legaladvice.com, WikiHow legal guides, and random blog posts written by people who had never seen the inside of a real courtroom. She highlighted passages in bright yellow marker like she was studying for the most important exam of her life, completely convinced that her internet research was equivalent to a law degree. She spent hours watching old Judge Judy episodes on YouTube, taking notes on what she thought were the judge's weaknesses, mapping out her strategy like she was planning a military invasion instead of attending a simple small claims court case. The case itself seemed almost boring on the surface, which is exactly what made Karen's upcoming destruction so much more satisfying. She was suing her former neighbor, Rebecca Martinez, for $600 in damages to her precious iPhone 14 Pro Max. According to Karen's version of events, Rebecca had deliberately thrown her phone to the ground during a heated argument at a backyard barbecue, shattering the screen and ruining the device completely. Karen painted herself as the innocent victim of a neighbor's violent outburst, claiming emotional distress, property damage, and even suggesting that Rebecca should pay punitive damages for what she called assault on personal property. But here's what Karen didn't know, and what would ultimately seal her fate in the most spectacular way possible. Rebecca had security camera footage from 3 different angles showing exactly what really happened that night. The footage revealed that Karen had actually thrown her own phone to the ground in a fit of rage when Rebecca refused to turn down her music, then immediately started screaming about how Rebecca was going to pay for the damage she caused. It was a complete setup, a fraudulent insurance scam disguised as a neighborly dispute. Judge Judy had reviewed this footage before the case even started, along with text messages where Karen admitted to her sister that she was going to milk this situation for every penny and that she knew exactly how to play the victim card. Karen's confidence was absolutely unshakable because she had never encountered someone who couldn't be manipulated, intimidated, or worn down by her relentless aggressive energy. She told her book club friends that she was going to expose Judge Judy as a fraud, posted on her Facebook about how she was going to teach that old woman some real law, and even practiced her victory speech in front of her bathroom mirror, complete with dramatic gestures and condescending remarks about judicial incompetence. She had spent hours perfecting her innocent victim act, rehearsing her fake tears and practiced her "I'm just a poor suburban mom being bullied by my aggressive neighbor" routine. The most delusional part of Karen's preparation was her absolute certainty that she could outsmart Judge Judy using nothing but attitude and volume. She had convinced herself that television judges were just actors playing a role, that the whole system was designed for entertainment rather than actual justice, and that her superior intelligence and research skills would expose the entire charade on national television. She walked into that courtroom carrying a leather portfolio stuffed with her internet printouts, wearing her most expensive outfit, and radiating the kind of toxic confidence that comes from a lifetime of never facing real consequences for terrible behavior. The Judge Judy courtroom was buzzing with its usual electric energy as cameras rolled live, capturing what everyone assumed would be another routine small claims dispute for millions of Americans to witness from their living rooms. The audience had settled in expecting the typical back-and-forth drama they'd come to love. Production assistants made their final checks, the bailiff took his position, and Judge Judy reviewed her notes one last time with that knowing smile that experienced viewers recognized as the calm before an absolute storm. Nobody in that room had any clue they were about to witness television history in the making, except for Judge Judy herself, who was sitting there like a chess master who had already seen checkmate 15 moves ahead. Karen strutted into the courtroom like a conquering hero returning from war, her blonde highlights fresh from the salon, her designer outfit carefully chosen to project success and superiority, and her leather portfolio clutched tight with what she believed were her secret weapons. She shot confident glances at the cameras, already imagining herself going viral for all the right reasons, completely oblivious to the fact that she was about to become the most humiliated plaintiff in daytime television history. Judge Judy watched this entrance with the calm patience of a predator studying its prey, knowing exactly how this performance was going to end, and she was savoring every second of Karen's deluded confidence. Judge Judy opened the case with her signature no-nonsense approach, her voice cutting through the courtroom air like a surgical blade. "Ms. Thompson, you're suing Ms. Martinez for $600, claiming she damaged your phone during an argument at a barbecue. Tell me what happened." It was a simple, straightforward question, the kind Judge Judy had asked thousands of times before, but Karen's response immediately signaled that this case was going to be anything but ordinary. Instead of simply explaining the facts, Karen launched into a theatrical performance that would have made soap opera actors cringe with embarrassment. Karen presented her case with the dramatic flair of someone auditioning for a movie role, complete with exaggerated gestures, fake emotional pauses, and a victim narrative so over the top it was almost comical. She painted herself as an innocent suburban mom who had been viciously attacked by her aggressive neighbor, describing Rebecca as someone who flew into an uncontrollable rage and deliberately destroyed my personal property in a fit of jealous anger. She pulled out her printed internet articles like they were sacred scrolls, waving them around as if they contained the secrets of the universe, completely convinced that her weekend research had uncovered legal loopholes that would guarantee her victory. Judge Judy listened to this entire performance with the expressionless face of someone who had seen this exact routine performed by thousands of other entitled liars. She let Karen dig her hole deeper and deeper, asking follow-up questions that seemed supportive but were actually designed to expose more lies and inconsistencies. Every answer Karen gave was creating more evidence for her eventual destruction, every confident statement was building the foundation for her complete humiliation, and every smug smile was adding fuel to the fire that was about to consume her entire facade. Then came the moment that would change everything forever. After reviewing the evidence and listening to both sides present their cases, Judge Judy delivered her ruling with the swift efficiency of someone who had made these decisions 20,000 times before. Ms. Thompson, based on the evidence presented, including security camera footage that clearly shows you threw your own phone to the ground in anger, I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. Ms. Martinez owes you nothing. Case dismissed. The gavel came down with the finality of a guillotine blade, and that should have been the end of a straightforward fraud case where justice prevailed over deception. But Karen Thompson was not a reasonable person who could accept defeat gracefully, and what happened next would transform a simple court ruling into the most viral moment in courtroom television history. The explosion that followed Judge Judy's ruling was unlike anything the courtroom had ever witnessed in its decades of televised justice. Karen's face went through a color transformation that would have impressed a chameleon, cycling from shock white to anger red to indignant purple in the span of 3 seconds, her entire body language shifting from confident plaintiff to absolutely unhinged maniac. She shot up from her chair so fast it nearly toppled over backward, her designer portfolio spilling papers across the floor like confetti at the world's worst celebration, legal printouts scattering everywhere as her carefully constructed facade crumbled in real time. "Are you kidding me right now?" Karen shrieked, her voice climbing to decibel levels that could shatter wine glasses, echoing through the stunned courtroom like nails on a chalkboard. "This is absolutely ridiculous. You clearly don't understand basic contract law." The audience gasped audibly, a collective intake of breath that seemed to suck all the oxygen out of the room. Even the bailiff, who had seen everything in his years of courtroom service, took an involuntary step forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his position as he witnessed something that had never happened before in Judge Judy's domain. Nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, had ever had the sheer insanity to tell Judge Judy she didn't understand the law. But Karen was just getting started on what would become the most spectacular courtroom meltdown ever captured on live television. She actually pointed her finger directly at Judge Judy, wagging it like she was scolding a misbehaving child who had disappointed her with poor performance. "I did my research, lady," Karen declared with the confidence of someone who genuinely believed her weekend Google sessions made her a legal expert. "I have case precedents that completely contradict your so-called ruling. You obviously haven't been keeping up with current legal developments." The sheer audacity of her words hung in the air like toxic fumes, poisoning the atmosphere of respect that Judge Judy had cultivated over 25 years of judicial authority. The court stenographer's fingers froze over her keyboard, unable to process that someone was actually lecturing America's most feared television judge about legal competence. But then came the moment that would seal Karen's fate forever and turn her into internet infamy for generations to come. Karen, in her infinite arrogance and complete disconnection from reality, actually turned to face the camera directly, addressing the millions of viewers watching at home as if she was delivering a public service announcement. She let out that condescending, entitled, absolutely earth-shatteringly stupid laugh that would haunt her for the rest of her natural life, the kind of laugh that screamed, "I am so much smarter than everyone in this room and I need America to know it." "This is exactly why I don't watch this show," Karen announced to the camera with the confidence of a movie critic delivering a scathing review, completely oblivious to the fact that she was committing professional suicide on national television. She clearly has no idea what she's talking about. I mean, seriously, how hard is it to understand simple property damage law? This woman is supposed to be a judge? She gestured dismissively toward Judge Judy like she was pointing out a defective product in a department store, her voice dripping with the kind of fake sophistication that made everyone in America want to reach through their television screens and shake some sense into her. The courtroom had transcended silence and entered some kind of alternate dimension where sound itself was afraid to exist. Judge Judy sat perfectly motionless, her hands folded, watching Karen's tirade with the fascination of a scientist observing a particularly volatile chemical reaction that was about to explode. The cameras captured every second of Karen's professional suicide, every gesture of her spectacular self-destruction, and the countdown to her complete annihilation had officially begun. Judge Judy's eyes had just transformed into laser beams of pure judicial fury, and Karen had no idea she had just lit the fuse on a legal bomb that was about to detonate in her face. What happened next was 36 seconds of the most brutal, precise, and absolutely devastating verbal annihilation ever witnessed in a courtroom. Judge Judy rose from her chair with the slow, deliberate movement of a hurricane gathering strength, her eyes locked on Karen with the intensity of a predator who had finally decided to stop playing with her prey and deliver the killing blow that would end this pathetic charade forever. "Let me educate you, young lady," Judge Judy began, her voice dropping to that terrifyingly calm tone that had made grown men weep, about what real law looks like. She reached for Karen's scattered papers with the same disgust someone might show toward contaminated evidence, holding up the internet printouts like they were radioactive waste that needed immediate disposal. "These pathetic articles you printed from legaladvice.com and WikiHow are not case precedents. They're not legal research. They're garbage written by people who couldn't pass a bar exam if their lives depended on it." Karen tried to interrupt, her mouth opening like a fish gasping for air in a desert, but Judge Judy's voice cut through her attempt like a sword slicing through silk. "Did I give you permission to speak? No. Then close your mouth and learn something for the first time in your entitled little life." The audience was frozen, witnessing a masterclass in judicial authority that would be studied in law schools for decades, as Judge Judy picked up Karen's so-called evidence piece by piece, dismantling each argument with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a warlord. This article about property damage law? Written by a paralegal who was fired for incompetence and now runs a blog from his mother's basement. This case study you highlighted in yellow marker like a desperate college freshman? It was overturned on appeal 3 years ago for being based on fraudulent evidence. And this legal opinion you're so proud of? It's from a website run by a man who was disbarred in 1987 for fraud and has been selling fake legal advice to idiots like you ever since. The color drained from Karen's face as Judge Judy continued her systematic destruction with surgical precision. "You want to talk about current legal developments? I've presided over 20,000 cases. I've forgotten more law than you'll ever pretend to know. You've handled exactly 0 cases, but you think 2 weeks of Google searches makes you qualified to lecture me about legal competence? You came into my courtroom, disrespected my authority, mocked my intelligence, and had the unmitigated gall to suggest that I don't understand the law that I've been practicing since you were in elementary school." Judge Judy's voice began to rise, building to a crescendo that would echo through television history forever. "Here's what's going to happen. Not only are you getting nothing for your ridiculous fraudulent claim, but I'm awarding maximum court costs to the defendant. $2,800. You want to disrespect my courtroom and commit fraud on national television? You can pay for the privilege. And let me give you some free legal advice since you desperately need it. The next time you think about mouthing off to a judge, remember this moment. Remember how your arrogance and stupidity just cost you $3,400 and your dignity on national television. Smash that like button if you think Judge Judy just delivered the greatest courtroom smackdown in television history. Comment justice served if you believe Karen got exactly what she deserved for her outrageous disrespect and fraudulent behavior. The transformation that occurred in Karen Thompson over the next 60 seconds was so complete, so utterly devastating, that it redefined what it meant to be humbled on national television. The woman who had strutted into the courtroom like she owned the entire building was about to become a sobbing, broken mess, begging for mercy from the same judge she had just insulted to her face with such breathtaking arrogance. It started with her voice, that confident, condescending tone that had carried her through years of bullying retail workers and intimidating customer service representatives began to crack like ice under pressure, the facade of superiority crumbling in real time as the reality of her situation finally penetrated her thick wall of entitlement. "Wait," she stammered, her hands reaching out desperately toward Judge Judy as if she could somehow physically grab back the last 5 minutes of her life and undo the catastrophic damage she had inflicted upon herself. "Wait, that's not fair. You can't just change the rules like that. I was just defending myself." Her voice was rising in pitch, taking on the whining quality of a spoiled child who had just been told they couldn't have ice cream for dinner. The same woman who had been lecturing Judge Judy about legal precedents now trying to rewrite history in real time like a desperate politician caught in a scandal. Judge Judy's response was colder than a Montana winter morning, each word landing on Karen like physical blows from a heavyweight champion. "Fair? You want to talk about fair after committing fraud in my courtroom? You came in here with fake evidence, lied about what happened, and then had the audacity to mock my intelligence on national television. Now you want to discuss fairness?" The reality of her situation was starting to penetrate Karen's delusion, and the cracks were showing everywhere like a dam about to burst under insurmountable pressure. Her perfectly styled hair was beginning to come undone as she ran her shaking hands through it repeatedly, her designer outfit that had been chosen so carefully to project success and superiority now making her look like she was wearing a costume to a party where she didn't belong. The leather portfolio that had contained her secret weapons lay scattered across the courtroom floor like the remnants of her shattered confidence and destroyed dreams of victory. The tears started as just a shimmer in her eyes, but within seconds they were flowing freely down her cheeks, carrying her carefully applied makeup with them in dark streaks that made her look like a melting wax figure in a horror movie. "Please, Your Honor," Karen sobbed, her voice now completely stripped of its earlier arrogance and dripping with the kind of desperation usually reserved for people begging for their lives. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I made a mistake. Please don't make me pay all that money. I can't afford it. I have kids to feed." The desperation in her voice was palpable, echoing through the silent courtroom like the death rattle of her former entitled self. This was the same woman who had walked in talking about her superior legal research and designer handbag lifestyle, now reduced to begging like someone asking for spare change on a street corner, her dignity completely evaporated and her arrogance transformed into pathetic pleading that made every viewer cringe with second-hand embarrassment. "The judgment stands," Judge Judy declared with the finality of a guillotine blade, her voice cutting through Karen's desperate sobs like a sword through paper. "Ms. Martinez, you are awarded $2,800 in court costs. Ms. Thompson, you are dismissed from my courtroom. Next time, show some respect and don't commit fraud on television." The gavel came down one final time, sealing Karen's fate and ending what had become the most spectacular courtroom meltdown ever captured on live television. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as Karen was escorted out, her pathetic sobs echoing through the hallway like the ghost of her former arrogance, a broken woman who had learned the hardest lesson of her privileged life in the most public way imaginable. Within hours of the episode airing, the clip exploded across social media platforms like a digital wildfire that couldn't be contained. Karen's mocking laugh followed immediately by her complete emotional breakdown became the most viral courtroom moment in internet history, shared millions of times with captions like, "This is what happens when you mess with Judge Judy, the moment entitlement died," and "Karen learns that actions have consequences." TikTok users created remix videos of her condescending laugh, Twitter turned her finger-wagging into endless memes, and YouTube compilations of her humiliation racked up tens of millions of views as people couldn't get enough of watching entitled behavior get absolutely destroyed by real authority. The aftermath was swift and merciless for Karen Thompson, whose life became a cautionary tale that spread faster than gossip in a small town. Her social media accounts were flooded with comments from people who recognized her as the woman who thought she was smarter than Judge Judy. Her local community knew exactly who she was thanks to the viral fame she never wanted, and she had become the poster child for everything wrong with entitled behavior in modern society. Local news stations picked up the story, her neighbors were giving interviews about her attitude, and she couldn't show her face anywhere without someone recognizing her as that Karen from Judge Judy who got completely destroyed. Judge Judy's handling of the case became legendary among legal professionals and everyday viewers alike, a masterclass demonstration that showed the world that in her courtroom, respect isn't negotiable and consequences are absolutely real. She had delivered more than just a legal ruling that day, she had given America a perfect example of what happens when unstoppable arrogance meets immovable judicial authority. Karen had achieved the fame she desperately wanted, just not the kind she had dreamed of in her delusional fantasies of victory and vindication. The moral of Karen's spectacular downfall was crystal clear to everyone who witnessed her destruction. In Judge Judy's courtroom and in life itself, humility always wins while arrogance gets exactly what it deserves. When you disrespect authority, authority will teach you precisely why it deserves respect, and the lesson will be more expensive and more public than you ever imagined possible. Karen learned that consequences don't care about your entitlement, your attitude, or your delusions of superiority. Smash that like button if you believe Judge Judy delivered the justice Karen desperately needed. Comment respect the court if you think every entitled person should watch this as a reality check. Hit subscribe for more epic moments where karma catches up with people who think they're above consequences. Remember, in Judge Judy's world, respect isn't optional, and neither are the consequences of forgetting that lesson.